Today is a very, very special day. It's very special because I've talked to the Remembrancer, and he said that we can go ahead and look at his video on the Night Lords. Hopefully, he enjoys what we're doing here and will comment or something. Doubtful, because he's a big shot and I'm just a little guy. But luckily, he was cool with us, continuing on with this. I've been excited about this for a minute now. Just haven't been able to get the video done yet. But today's the day. Today is the day, and I'm so excited. This is one of his playlists. We are doing I think I'm going to butcher this, and I apologize. Sincerely, I do. It's Ave Dominus Nox. I believe that's the character's name, but again, I'm not really sure. We're going to find out. The reason we're doing the Night Lords is because it's the one that interests me the most right now, being as they're all criminals, really sadistic and creepy. I like that lore. I like their armor in all the pictures and stuff that we saw. I think they're kind of metal. I really like that. I like the darker stuff. That's why I like this universe so much. Without further ado, let's get into the Night Lords by the Remembrancer.
Surprise is an insubstantial blade, a sword worthless in a war. It breaks when troops rally. It snaps when commanders hold the line. But fear never fades. Fear is a blade that sharpens with use. So let the enemy know we come. Let their fears defeat them as everything falls dark. As the world's sun sets, as the city is reaved in its final night, let 10,000 howls premise 10,000 claws. The Night Lords are coming, and no soul that stands against us shall see another dawn.
Is awesome!
Of the founding legions of the Adeptus Astartes, many have cited the relative ease that some were corrupted by the law of chaos. For whilst there are legions whose resolve and loyalty are without question, there are those who have always been regarded by their peers as unstable, or in some cases, even inherently malevolent. As such, today we shall elucidate the history of one such legion who arguably had fallen well before the betrayal of the Horus Heresy. The brutal killers of Nostramo, the Night Lords. Formed on holy Terra from the dregs of humanity from within the linked prison sinks.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry, he has, the Remembrancer really just sucks you into all of this. His voice, I'm sure that's him, narrating all this is fantastic. Remembrancer, if you see this, you're already, I've never seen any of your videos before. This is awesome. I just want you to say, I want you to know that these are awesome. Wow. Powerful. So again, what Bricky had told us before is that this particular Legion chapter, well, Legion, not the chapter itself, was predominantly evil before, which, yeah, we knew because of their tactics, and then he also said that just because they're brought in from, they're all murderers, and the other word that I'm not going to say, and criminals, it's just that they're brought in because of that. So, and then he's really breaking it down from Holy Terra, the dregs of humanity, from within linked prison sinks. All these guys, these evil, sadistic people were brought in. Now, these guys are awesome as a shock troop. Just a shock and awe. Just get in there, do horrible, horrible things, and scare the ever-loving crap out of whoever's there into just, resigning themselves into, we're done. We're taking over. These guys are crazy. we don't want this anymore. They've already taken so many casualties. The story that also, just real quick, that Bricky had said where, like, they went into a ship or something and then killed a bunch of people, flayed their skin off and then dropped their corpses from the ship. It's just the amount of, I guess, disgusting tactics that they're willing to go through to get what they want. It's also like that's pretty metal too. Unfortunately, it's also really horrible for some people. It's just, I don't know, it's bizarre and macabre, and I love it.
The condemned of the underground ruins of Terra would live in unending darkness, starved of food, gutting one another, and delving into the pits of madness. These depraved survivors of the worst of Terra's circumstance would hone their skills of murder and backstabbing. Children would be born from the madness, cradled in bloodshed, fear, and the ever-present embrace of death. These knights' children would grow to be more savage than even the adult populace. Their ashen, light-deprived features striking a clear contrast with the more noble astartes aspirants of their contemporaries. Used to suppress revolt and rebellion amongst the Terran populace, the Eighth would be tasked with only the most cruel of tactics to enforce compliance to the Imperium. For those who sinned in their efforts to devolve back into the habits of Old Knight, the Eighth Legion would bring merciless retribution. Culling the march of 10 million, the psi-breeding of the court of Antaeus, and the atrocities caused by the Saragorn Enclave, the Eighth Legion would enact their obsession to purge the sinful, with which the Knight's children had been raised to endure since their birth. There would be no innocence, no excuse, only rivers of blood. No grey area.
Look at that armor. So these are I was wondering about that one thing there. So we know that Astartes start as children. They're taken and become, they have to go through the process, which a lot of them don't survive, but the ones who do become Space Marines. So the way they made it seem is like all just the horrible humans of Terra become, not all of them, I shouldn't say all of them, but like it kind of sounded like they were all criminals that they gathered to become Space Marines, right? But then it was like, how can you be a criminal already knowing that you're gonna be a criminal, but then you're turned into an Astartes as an adult? Is that? But then it kind of makes sense that they were children that had to grow up in this crap first, this horrible heathenistic, loathsome life that are brought up. So now I kind of understand that, because it didn't really get into it too far into that other video we watched, the last series of them. So I was curious to know how this began. How do you get criminals to become Astartes if they're already criminals? Well, if they're children that grew up in the populace, came up as criminals themselves, that makes sense. Okay.
Areas, only black and white, judgment. Disgusted by their own existence, the fledgling Eighth Legion would seek to slay every monster of the galaxy as absolution for their own degeneracy. Yet the Legion would soon be reunited with their primarch, and their quest for exculpation would be further tested. The Emperor of Mankind would never see the potential of his gene-son, Konrad Curze, fulfilled with his providence squandered upon the world of Nostramo. The sunless hive world would be characterized by its rampant crime, suffering, and corruption. Rich in adamantium ore deposits, the wealthy would lord over the populace, whilst growing fat as pollution spewed from the mines and factories of the planet. Under the watchful eyes of the planet's iron overseers, sons of toil and hands of Corrugado, the gangs of Nostramo would give fealty to the barons, counts, and other noble lords of the planet in exchange for the authority to enact their twisted justice. With Konrad Curze's gestation capsule landing on Nostramo Quintus, The capsule would burrow into the heart of the planet and stop near the world's unstable core. Destroying the adamantium deposits during the descent, the Primarch would be sealed within the scarred rend of surface. Though it is unclear as to how the infant Primarch would escape his tomb, Curze would survive his journey to the surface. Living amongst the sprawling spires of Nostramo Quintus, the being whom would be known as the Night Haunter would skulk the darkness until growing in stature. Committing many atrocities amongst the populace, martial law would be enacted on Nostramo's hive cities to protect its citizenry. Yet the Night Haunter would diminish the crime rate of the planet to nothing within a year.
Oh. So, wow. Okay. They shot the Night Lord. I forgot Konrad Curze. Konrad Curze. Kearns? I already forgot. That's horrible. Hopefully they say it again. Konrad, they shot him into the ore deposits. Don't know if that was on purpose or not, but they shot him in there, sealed him in, destroyed that ore, and then he came out. He had to have been like a child at that point, but then he took care of all the crime on that planet in a year. That's insane. That's insane. And so he's got to be, obviously they grow pretty quick and they're really, strong, but he took care of everything in a year. That's that's badass. It's like Batman on steroids that kills people.
The Stramans would not dare to leave their homes after the self-imposed curfew, with even mothers of their children warning their progeny of the being that skulked the streets. Poised to rule the planet by sheer surrender of their rights in exchange for safety, the new dictator of Nostramo would oversee the planet's new order to burgeon prosperity, fairness, and honesty. Yet with the arrival of the Emperor of Mankind, during 896.M30, Nostramo's fortunes would turn sour. Submitting to the Emperor, Curze would accept his duty to lead
Konrad
the 8th
Curze.
Legion. Studying the tactics and doctrines of the Adeptus Astartes under the tutelage of his brother Primarch, Fulgrim.
Fucking Fulgrim.
Curze would lead his newly renamed legion, the Night Lords. Akin to the witch hunters of ancient Terra, the Night Lords would purge the galaxy of enemies foolish enough to stand against the Imperial Creed. Highly effective in their methods of waging war, their drastic and cruel tactics, whilst decried by the other legions, would see to the rapid compliance of worlds with minimal casualties.
Well, yeah. You drop these guys on a fucking planet. I mean, really, I'm currently afraid of what's going to happen if I leave this screen up too long. He is scary as hell, but he's also awesome. So it's like their shock and awe tactics, their run in, just mess as much up as they need to mess up and do it as gruesome as possible just to get their point across that you will submit. That is scary. That is scary. That's like, I don't even know what else to describe that as. It's like, what else could be actually like compare that to? It's almost, think of it, I mentioned Batman earlier. He uses fear similar, but he doesn't like flay people. At least I don't think so, right? He doesn't flay people to get what he wants, except for maybe the Batman who laughs. He probably does because he's a weirdo. Anyway, these guys are awesome. Scary as hell, though. Scary as hell. That guy taking on it still boggles the mind. He took on the entire planet. Or was it the planet, or did they say just a city? I'm pretty sure everybody would be afraid of that guy, no matter where they're at on this earth, this planet, because he's just killing everybody. I don't know. That's just, these guys are so cool. I'm extremely enthralled in this right now.
Bringing rebellious planets into line with the mere mention of the 8th's deployment, no other legion would come close to instilling such boundless fear within the minds of the enemies of the Imperium. With Curze's departure from Nostramo, his recruits from the world would soon be tainted with the dissolution of the planet's laws. For with no Night Haunter to hound them, the Nostramans would devolve back into cruelty and lawlessness, to which the new Astartes recruits would be derived from little more than gutter rats. With such recruits' adoption into the Legion, its turn to more noble prospects would be distorted and corrupted. Despising his own gene sons, Curze would be discontent with his new life, seemingly doomed to fail. No matter his struggle or intent, the Night Lords would never be alike to his brother's legions. They were murderers, first, last, and always. And for Curze more than any, he would see portents of the future. Visions of endless darkness, suffering, and madness. Revered as the most petty of all the legions, the Night Lords would willingly soak their hands in the blood of entire planets without qualm. Enacting exterminatus on many worlds, the atrocities enacted in the name of the Eighth would continue to cement their downward spiral of betrayal. Returning to their homeworld during 984.M30, the Night Lords would observe Nostramo to have once more become a pit of criminality. Firing the Night Lords' fleet's lance batteries into the core of the planet, Nostramo would be torn apart, and in doing so, untether the 8th Legion from their ties to the Imperium. An act of defiance so grave, the Emperor would recall the Night Lords to Holy Terra and their primarch to answer for his crimes. Believing his...
So he pretty much destroyed his own planet because he was sick of all the criminals in there. The second he left, they went right back to being horrible, horrible humans. And then he's just obliterate them. I could see that. If he was already, like, say, he kind of mentioned that he went with Fulgrim to go and learn what it takes to be a primarch. They're probably learning some sort of honor, some form of honor. He already didn't like criminals having to grow up the way he did. So it's going to piss him off. The second he leaves, they all go right back to doing the same shit. Yeah, I mean, that would make me mad too. I probably wouldn't destroy a planet over it, but it's also like he just said it was an act of defiance against the Emperor. You're going to piss off your dad. Don't do it. You're going to piss him off. Well, we did it because I'm sick of it. And then he also didn't like any of his gene seed, the Space Marines that came from his planet, because they were all fucked up anyway. So it kind of makes sense. It's shitty for him though. Now they're not tied to that world, so I guess what's going to happen next with them?
His actions to fall in line with the Emperor's own methods of waging war, the embittered Primarch would be castigated for the destruction of his homeworld. The Imperium would punish the Night Lords by refusing to ship supplies to sectors held by the 8th Legion and banish them to the vanguard of the Great Crusade. And though their penance would be complete with the dawn of the 31st millennium, the Night Lords' memory would be found resentful of their treatment and aligned them with a new power growing within the galaxy. For with the rise of the corrupted War Master, Horus Lupercal, and the betrayal of the legions of the Emperor's children, World Eaters, Death Guard, and Sons of Horus, the Night Lords would see an opportunity. A chance to seek retribution against the Imperium, the Emperor, and all whom it slighted and repressed their nature. The beginning of the civil war known as the Horus Heresy. Already at odds with the Imperium, the Night Lords would need little encouragement to rebel. Joining the traitorous betrayal of the Istvan V Dropside massacre, Curze and his Night Lords would slaughter their loyalist brethren with glee as the might of the War Master's rebellion would swiftly destroy the first challenge to their wrath. With the ever-increasing madness of their Primarch, the 8th Legion would begin to doubt their actions, yet stand unified against their hated foes. Enacting the Framas Crusade without the supervision of Curze, the Night Lords would seek to challenge the Dark Angel's Legion to test their pride. Yet within the Legion of the Night Lords, the fate of their primarch would be split. Some wished him to regain the splendor of his past, whilst others plotted to see him descend further into madness. Unable to match the Dark Angels due to their inability to contest their discipline, the Night Lords would begin to fragment as the Framas Crusade waged on. Retreating from the Framas sector, the Night Lords would lose contact with their primarch and be split into warbands of varying sizes. Though some warbands aided the War Master during the Siege of Terra, it would not be sufficient enough to conquer the indomitable defenders of the Imperial Palace. Retreating to the eastern fringes of the galaxy, the Night Lords would turn on themselves in a power struggle to replace their absent primarch.
Okay, so somebody left a comment. I apologize. I apologize that I can't remember who. If you see this video again, please let me know. Remind me. They said that when Legion falls, instead of becoming chapters, they split up into warbands. So that makes sense that they all kind of split up after they lost contact with their primarch, Konrad. It really didn't take much. He just said that it didn't take much for them to fall. Getting kicked to the front of the line during a war, pretty much because you ended up screwing up and the Emperor is sick of you. So then you get to go to the front of the line and go die for his will, essentially, on the Great Crusade. I mean, he kind of deserved, they deserved what happened. They should not have turned. Also, there's a lot of really cool artwork in the back. Just want to point that out. That front guy has just a human head sitting on his hip. It's a little out there. And then that guy in the back with his gun, that looks sick. Looks like a demon face on the end of his heavy bolter. Wow. But yeah, it makes sense that they wouldn't have to, it really wouldn't take that long for them to go fall into chaos. They really haven't brought up, like, did they make a deal with the chaos gods or anything yet? So they just did the heresy. That's all they did. Doesn't sound like they actually dropped into chaos yet, but they are on the verge. Maybe not been in contact with demons. We'll find out. Let's keep going.
Unwilling to accept or acknowledge the flaws within themselves as the cause of their misfortune, the Night Lords would continue to lay their path to damnation. With the Night Haunter discovered within a jettisoned sarcophagus by the salvage ship, the Sheldrun, Curze would manage to return to the planet that had decided the fate of the Framas Crusade, Sagwalza. Rejoining his sons, Konrad Curze would not live long enough to reform his broken legion. For a Calidus assassin, Meshen would infiltrate the Night Lord's fortress housing the Primarch, and with his blessing, slay the Night Haunter. For Curze had been tormented with visions of the future for centuries, and had seen his death many times by the assassin's hand. As a defiant martyrdom against the Emperor, Curze would relish his death and accept it without qualm. Demanding that his sons would not seek reprisal from the assassin, his last wish would be ignored, for soon after, Meshen would also be slain. The Night Lords would further splinter into feuding warbands and relocate to the Eye of Terra. Deteriorating as the millennia passed, the Night Lords are now merely a shadow of their former strength. Hired as mercenaries and pirates by more powerful and prevalent warbands, the Night Lords also aid in the prolonged wars waged by the War Master, Abaddon the Despoiler, and his Black Crusade.
Oh yeah, that is killer artwork right there. Abaddon the Despoiler. I think so. I ended up getting the Magic the Gathering Warhammer 40k, just the Imperium one so far. He's, I believe, Chaos. I'm gonna buy the Chaos one next. I know it's been like a year. I get it. It's been out a year. I've been out of the MTG for a long time. I didn't know this was a thing until like a few weeks ago. So I'm a little behind, but I love it. So I already bought one. I'm going to buy another one and probably the other two at a different point. That Necrons one is $70 right now. That's insane. Apparently it's really good. Been going through the deck list. It doesn't really seem... It seems kind of hard to fire off some of those additional, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going into Magic. Just ignore me on that one. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because he is Abaddon, the Despoiler, is one of the commanders in that deck, and I'm so excited for it. I'm ready for game night again. It's probably going to be a few weeks out before I get this, or we get to play Commander again. It's exciting. Just a big nerd. That's all I am.
AIDS. Renewed with purpose with the expanse of the Great Rift during the Era Indomitus, the Night Lords prey on the worlds of the Imperium, cut off from the Emperor's light. Raiding fortress monasteries, gene seed banks, and munitions depots, the Night Lords are rebuilding their legion, piece by arduous piece. The screams of their victims heralding the sickening rebirth of the damned 8th Legion. Despite their unassuming and disorganized origins, the Night Lords in their prime employed a variety of specialists and elite squadrons within their ranks. The Terra would advise their primarch as confidants and counselors. Consisting of the Night Haunter's most trusted lieutenants, the Terra would function independent of the Legion's wider command structure, yet temper the Legion's decisions and doctrines. The Atramentar comprised the most elite members of the Legion into their first company, personally selected by Konrad Curze. Originally led by First Captain Jago Sevatarian, the Atramentar would be decked in Terminator armor and wreak havoc as a unified force. Noted for their cruelty and ferocity, with the dissolution of the Legion, so too would the elite First Company fragment, with its members forming their own warbands or serving as bodyguards of their patron Chaos Lords. The Contikar would mete out shock trooper deployments against their enemies, sowing despair, terror, and panic amongst their enemies. Formed of the most savage murderers and
Okay. So real quick, just as a rundown. So first of all, they're mercenaries for the most part in their war bands. Okay? Mercenaries, pirates, and then they serve other war bands as the mercenaries. And then their top lieutenants are also fractured from that first little legion they had. And they were all specialized. Okay, so they got the Terminator armor. Okay, I think I understand where we're heading.
Butchers of the Legion,
Maybe.
the Contikar would gain a reputation during the Great Crusade as the most effective means of demoralizing non-compliant worlds. Burning agriculture, toppling infrastructure, and demolishing the very foundations of societies, the Contikar would be commanded by only their primarch and first captain due to their severe methods. The Legion's terror squads would be formed of those willing to brutalize their enemies using torture, mutilation, and flaying. The dispassionate souls of the terror squads would enact their cruelly imaginative arts upon their enemies that are now too unspeakable to detail.
Whoa.
Unstable and unsubtle, the members of the terror squads would be outcasts even within their own legion, often marked for death and serving as penance for their depraved crimes. And finally, the Night Raptors would specialize in massacres initiated by aerial assault. So potent would their assaults be, the Raptors would serve as the example for all Chaos Space Marine Raptor assault troops to follow, regardless of their gene origins or lineage. Led by their Talon Master, their Lightning Claws or Unguis Raptus would be so efficient in meting out slaughter during the Great Crusade, their reputation would be unnerving yet unparalleled in its efficacy. Utilizing close quarters melee weapons and jump packs, the Raptors would conduct raids of overwhelming might and speed in order to decimate their foes.
Okay, we're gonna pause there, right there. That's where we're gonna stop for this one. Those guys are so fucking badass. Remember, sir, I, you're doing an amazing job. I love, I love your videos. Fantastic. So they have the Terminators, their regular Space Marines, lead captains. They also have their jump pack. What was it? The jump pack guys? They're shock troops essentially. With their Talon Master. That is so cool. And then they were the pillar that all other Chaos Space Marine, you know, shock troops were to be formed to, whether their gene seed was different or any reason. That was how they were supposed to be. This is so cool. This is so cool. I think I think this is still one of my favorite legions right now. We're gonna have to, spread out the love as far as like what other legion I'm gonna like, and break it down even further into chapters, whatever. Currently, these are my favorite. These are my favorite. I cannot tell you why, but they are my favorite. But in this one, we're gonna go ahead and stop it here. If you like the video, please like the video, comment, subscribe. Also, make sure that you go to the Remembrancers channel, subscribe to him. Please, if you're not already, please do. Go check out his stuff. Fantastic. Great job. I am going to split a couple of these into two, but thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.